Hi there, this is Greg Lewis, your city manager here in Lebanon, New Hampshire. Welcome to Lebanon in Depth today. I'm very pleased to be able to discuss with you the capital improvement plan for the city of Lebanon. I have been in Lebanon now for 4 years. I really admire our place we live in. It really is what I have been characterizing as a destination place. It's the destination for so many diverse and different people and entities and interests. But as a destination place, unlike some places where people are leaving, here people are coming, people are thriving, but it's a very challenging environment. We were looking at, in terms of a destination, there are those who have lived here for many years, and of course this has been their destiny, and it has been in fact the destination for themselves, their families, their ancestors for many, many years. But there are those such as myself who have recently arrived in the last 4 years, as example, and there's those who every day it's our destination. So we some 13,000 people, and then some during days, every day you have this traveling coming in to the destination of Lebanon. And it's 20,000 plus. I mean, it's been as high as projections of 35,000 a day, but at least 20,000 plus coming into our city. Now, what does that mean for us as a place of destination? Well, it means that the infrastructure that we have here is taking quite a pounding. And the infrastructure is another way of saying capital. I used to give a speech where I talked about the different types of resources in life, and whether it's human resources or it's natural resources. But when you have a built infrastructure, it's your capital resources. And most capital resources, the general rule of thumb is there's a life cycle of 40 to 60 years. So a great deal of the infrastructure in the Lebanon area has been built with that length of time in mind. So we have places that we have existence of roads and sidewalks and bridges and tunnels that are reaching the end of their life cycle, 40 to 60 years. And when the piper plays, it all comes to you. You only have to pay the piper, and that takes careful balancing, and that leads to what we have is a capital improvement plan. It's an attempt to take this kind of disorder, which is where the arrows are aligned, and I often talk about the arrows, and that these things are pointing in different directions in terms of what our future is, in terms of all the types of infrastructure I just mentioned. And the infrastructure includes more than roads, bridges, and tunnels. It includes airports, facilities. It includes all the mainline public resources you have available to you. So you have to always think of that in that terms. These are investments that were made by earlier generations, and it's coming due, and now we in turn have to carry on that baton and make investments for the future, because if not, we have a deterioration where the natural forces of crumbling walls, of deteriorating weight load, where you can't carry the weight load that once carried, or to have institutions that seem to be out of line with kind of where we are, and there seems to be a question mark about where we're going. So it's around us, it's around the infrastructure, and the capital plan surrounds everywhere we are. And you see it today, whether you see the dry bridge project where the railings being replaced in West Lebanon, or you see the tunnel matter where we have the tunnel blocked off, and we have some obstacles placed so people can't traverse over the tunnel or park on the top of the tunnel where the top of it is. These things are all happening as we're saying, and those who have experienced the 2013 really extreme weather conditions of the microburst, you saw how that we're working on your roads, the Slayton Hill Road. We're going to be working on the Dulac. We got the design. We're up there on Storrs Hill, one of our infrastructures, where we have our ski jump. We're working on some of the airport grounds. So we had that interceptor that failed out in West Lebanon, and that we're working on replacing that. And so these things just come at you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about today about how we take this order, the arrows, and how we bring them into alignment to try to move forward. I told you about the categories of the particular infrastructures. If you're going to call them generally, you would describe them as the transportation needs and infrastructure, and that includes the roads, the bridges, and all our trails and our networks around the rivers. It also includes our airport, the road maintenance, trying to keep those from deteriorating such that we have unsafe conditions when you travel on one of our streets. And you know that we're working on the Mechanic Street as an example, parallel to the Muskoma Greenway, which is where we want to have a trail that connects both Lebanon and West Lebanon. And you notice that the Mechanic Street was really problematic as you traveled each day. It recently has been repaved, but that's only a temporary fix for the next couple, 2 or 3 years, as we kind of queue up for an infrastructure project that would basically redo Mechanic Street and also redo the bridge at the end of Mechanic Street as you go into the downtown Lebanon area. The bridges, we have several bridges that have experienced in what they call them red flag bridges. These bridges are really in need of replacement, but it's so costly to replace bridges that it's in the queue for state funding and other sources of funding as we try to work through it and try to spread and still tackle these bridges. These bridges are being inspected. The state does inspection of bridges. And so these bridges are continuously looked at, and then if there's a real problem, they're going to be stopped from being used. And if they are stopped from being used, they're going to be really an obstruction for people in trying to do their normal day-to-day travel. So we're going to have to work through these bridges and take care of them. Facility improvements are a very important thing for us. Some facilities, we look at down the road, the Sim Hill School and the question of its future and whether it can be used as a community facility for city recreation and collaborate with other entities to share that particular facility. We've looked at the city hall in the last cycle. We're going to have to postpone that for a while to 2017. But there's need to look at renovation of these facilities, and that we have our principal fire facility, which is in downtown Lebanon. And that has issues that are challenging, in terms of being properly accessible for everyone. The modern day fire and department and all the fire procedures and the emergency management procedures, those all things are starting to look at these facilities. Our infrastructure in terms of our utilities are equally important. We're upgrading right now the wastewater facility, and we are going to be looking at the water facility down the road. All this is about being a place of destination, having quality of life. And that is really where we talk about sustainability and resiliency. We've got to be able to both be good for today so that we can use this infrastructure, but we need to be making good investments that will last and have a proper life cycle and be constructed in a way that will maximize their utility. And so that's very important to sustain this. So it's a long-term investment for multiple generations. And the reason we end up funding these things through debt financing is because generations after generations, they have experienced the value, and so it's properly, in terms of parity and equity, to share the cost of that over a period of time. Our proposed budget, we look at the budget itself, our overall budget that's proposed this year is almost $53 million. And of that, the capital improvement occupy about $13.5 million. So you can look at that budget of the 53 and say that you have 13.5 thereabouts $1 million for the capital improvements. You can see where the impact financially is on the city. So the capital improvement plan is very important for us. The next one down after that particular plan is the public safety, which is where our attempt to be as safe and risk-free as we can be. You look at the overall budget and what it constitutes. The capital improvement constitute about 26% of our budget. So you can imagine we had all that capital infrastructure that was completely up to speed, up to date, ready to go for our usage, and we didn't have that in our budget. Well, we'd have a budget that would be reduced by some 26%, which would mean that we would have no tax increases. And so when you think about what drives our property tax system in New Hampshire, you could see that the clear fact is the capital improvement infrastructure, I call it, y'all fall down. And that's what's going on. Now, in past times and eras in the United States, there have been a recognition that capital infrastructure is extremely important from a national point of view and from a state point of view. As a result of that, cities like Lebanon weren't just asked to go it alone. You know, instead of building everything on the basis of a property tax system, it was built on a base of a shared effort, a shared resource on multiple layers of government. Now that allowed for a greater access to different types of resources that could be brought to bear. So kind of everyone paid more their share. Now it falls on the property tax, which I think the society has to kind of question itself as to whether that is the proper way of dealing with these long-term infrastructure problems that have 40 to 60-year cycles. But that's the case today. 26% of our budget is capital improvements. When we go down, and Lynn Jarvie, our finance director, has been just tremendous. Since I've been here, I've had such a pleasure working and watching his professionalism and how he works each year with the budget book. And the budget book is online, and the budget book is available. The budget book is very clear and very precise and very definitive on covering the different elements of the budget, in particular the capital improvement plan. And looking at he has a handout in his section on the budget on capital improvements. It's section 4 for those who might look at it. I'd encourage you to read the budget, and it's online. I would encourage you to do it. Or with the kind assistance of the CATV, we're going to be showing you the website link that would lead you to the capital improvement plan. But it shows again what I mentioned earlier, is that there's almost a $13.5 million proposal for capital improvements of the almost $53 million budget. I'm going to spend the rest of the time today just chatting a little bit with you about the individual projects that are in the pike here. The first one is it's really a Herculean effort by the city of Lebanon, and it's a very heroic effort in terms of a city deciding that, you know, we're faced with the circumstances of environmental impact with our water and our sewer not being separated in terms of the drainage systems on our streets, and that the requirement under law to do that, and there was an agreement entered into between the city and the EPA to do that. And the city added to it that when we're in there digging everything up, because when you try to separate water and sewer, you're going to dig everything up. And so rather than just dig that up and put it back in place as it were, what the city has been doing is they've been, as we go through it, they've basically been remaking the city's streets where the separation of water and sewer is occurring. This bodes well for the future generation, so it's a sustainable effort. It also bodes well today. I myself, my wife and I happen to live on CSO 9 project, which is going on right now to illustrate one of those projects. And it's been going on all summer and it went into the fall. They've completed most of it, but there's a portion of it is yet to be completed, which will go into the next spring season to finish up. That's been a remarkable source of wonderment to me to watch the construction firm that was selected work and methodically go through this process of and they almost, they take down the street one day, they build it back up at the end of the day, then they take it down again, and they keep redoing it. As they do this very tedious but very important work of moving down the street and changing out the street, separating the water and sewer, and putting in new infrastructure that will be fit for the 21st century. That CSO effort is a very large effort, and that constitutes $4.9 million, almost $5 million. 4.9 million is $4,970,000. That's been going on some time. We hope to finish the last projects in the 2018, 2019 era, and that will complete it. And then we'll prepare ourselves to pivot to some of the other areas, because as we work on this huge project of CSOs, CSO 10 has been in design. I just signed the contracts on CSO 10, awarding the contracts to a firm today, this very day of the show, and that I signed all the contracts with the construction firms that was the lowest responsible bidder, and they're moving forward, and they're already doing all the paperwork and everything, and they'll be lined up to go at it come the 2015 construction season. 2011 is in the pike. We're talking about maybe having an actual virtual walkabout for people to, since it's going to be kind of cold this winter, to get some preview of this with the members of the community that CSO in Lebanon will be on. And so we'll probably Google walk people through the different areas, and then we'll actually be out in the streets again with the citizens. And all our infrastructure projects, we're trying to do walkabouts and community meetings. So we're going to come and be part of the community. The community comes and becomes part of us because it's really your streets, and we want to listen to you, and we want to have you have full understanding of what the issues are, and again, get your inputs and feedback and suggestions on how to do it best. That's uniform among all our infrastructure projects. Our next capital improvement is what's called the CMOM, which is really called a Capacity Management Operations Maintenance Plan. That's kind of big fancy words, but we're going to kind of monitor all our present systems and see where they're functioning. And that's important because we want to make sure all the systems are functioning and have a maintenance system that will make sure they are functioning. And that's this program that's going to be put in place. And it's kind of going on underneath us as we go in our systems of drainage. Then we in addition to digging in the ground and working up those roads and streets and bridges, it's important we keep our equipment in proper stead. We have to have the proper equipment because it takes a very strong effort and burden in carrying out things, because this is really, you're moving significant quantities of materials and weights of materials, and this equipment takes a lot of just really wear and tear, and so we want to keep it going. And since the items on that are very significantly in cost, we want to stage it. So we've been investing now in a pattern of $250,000 a year. We have some interesting possibilities. We want to improve the School Street pedestrian facility. That's on New Hampshire 120. That'll help in for the people that are engaged in the pedestrian area, and it'll help provide a facility that'll serve you that are using the streets. We want to be a walkable community. We want it when you're outside. We want you to be able to basically navigate in the city, and that's an important part of our being a sustainable, resilient, is to be livable and walkable. And so when we create pedestrian facilities, it's another important linkage to our goal of an outcome of a sustainable and livable city that's walkable. And we're trying to take cognizance of the carbon footprint that we create and work to manage our necessary use of vehicles in a different way. So anytime we can invest in pedestrian endeavors, we do. We also, our water plant has a high lift pump electrical upgrade. That's a part of our upgrading our utilities again. That's a $500,000 number. Our fire department, it really takes upon itself a lot of responsibilities, but one of which is they take it on the responsibilities of making sure that we take care of our connectivity. And that in order to do that, these things are on poles, and we need to upgrade our bucket truck that's used to help in terms of monitoring. These are alarm systems, these are connectivity and cable and linkage between facilities and between public institutions. So that's an important thing, this bucket truck replacement, in order to allow people to safely manage those systems, because when they go down, then communication just drops. Then there is the landfill is a very important asset to us. It is a utility for our residents. It's a valuable commodity for all of us to have a landfill. We want to maintain that utility, and so we want to have the right kind of equipment. And we have a loader replacement this year. It's a $280,000 number. You can imagine how difficult it is in terms of the amount of waste that we're managing at the landfill, and that we have to have good equipment to do that. And this is, in the case, is a landfill loader replacement. We also want to do a landfill equipment waste wash station. We want to wash our equipment because can imagine the dirt and the dust and the debris that settles into equipment if they're not properly managed. And that reduces their productivity, their efficiency, their life cycling. So we want to take our assets, we want to be good stewards, and we want to preserve and protect. I mentioned earlier about our mechanics, and that equipment I'll mention is $80,000 for this wash equipment to keep that equipment in good conditions and have a good life cycle and keep productivity up. There's two things on Mechanic Street I've talked about earlier, but they're really important. Mechanic Street is such a linkage, and the Mechanic Street reconstruction amount that we have in the budget is it's $2,920,000. And there's different sources for that, of course, and I mentioned it earlier. There's some intergovernmental government money that's expected from the state, and that's $2,338,000. Then we have some interfund transfers, and then we have our bonding that'll be about for Mechanic Street reconstruction, about over a little $500,000, $513,920. Our bridge at Mechanic Street Bridge, because we got to make sure the bridge is kosher with the street being fixed up. So the bridge, that amount of money is $180,000 as we work to sustain and protect the bridge. Of that, we'll get $144,000 through intergovernmental transfer, and we'll end up out of our bonding efforts $36,000. This item is one of those items that just jumps out at you in terms of the location of it being a destination place. We had the indications that the rail tunnel, which is under the parking lot of the downtown Lebanon Mall, that it was deteriorating, and that sending engineers in, and it would say that we had to close that tunnel, and we have to put protection barriers over the top of it, which we had some stone monuments that we were able to engage to keep people from parking and traveling on it. We want to explore the possibilities there in terms of creating concepts and concept designs and alternatives, and there's $410,000 in there. There was like a $3 to $4 million number just to go in and replace the bridge, replace the tunnel. That's a lot of money for replacement of the tunnel. There's been the other end of the spectrum, people have said, well, why don't you just fill it in? Well, there's lots of reasons to look at this carefully because it's underneath the parking lot. And its present structure and how it's designed, there's some challenges in it. There's also some former rights under it with regards to the rail and the state with regard to a path for rail. Those things are going to be ironed out, and also just the whole look at the downtown Lebanon Mall area is an opportunity to take a peek at how the present access is achieved and what streets there are, and how, if that's what happened back in the 60s and 70s, is that still the thing that should happen downtown now or not? This provides an opening for some conversation, which conversation about infrastructure is extremely important. We need to get all points of view. We need to get to the facts, get to the detail, get to the data, and then share it universally with the people in Lebanon, our residents, our stakeholders, and see what's best in that area. As I mentioned, replacement vehicles is important. The fire department's vehicles, we want to make sure when it comes to protecting and serving residents of Lebanon and our stakeholders in Lebanon that we have good equipment for our fire department and our police department. In this case, it will be a vehicle replacement for our fire department. As I said, we have bridge issues. There is a Packard Hill Bridge, and it's a $100,000 cost to it. And this is, again, one of our bridges that needs attention. We have a very important item, and the last item is the airport master plan. Sometimes people think, well, the airport's a source of many things. A source of noise, a source of having to pay taxes for it, these sort of things. If you think about the noise that's created on our highways, about the amount of costs we spend on trying to deal with our highways and our bridges, and you think that we have to think of the airport as really infrastructure that serves the public. And so for every time you have infrastructure, there are collateral and there are issues coming from such infrastructure. But I think we really have to be objective about this. We have to follow the facts, and we have to engage each other in conversations. We have to make sure everyone in Lebanon thoroughly understands all features and all facets about the airport, about the airport footprint that extends beyond the airport into the business park, extends into the general area of where the airport is currently at, and all the surrounding businesses around the airport, including the 12A area. These are matters that have really layers and layers of different kinds of data. From environmental impact, which is extremely important, to businesses that, in terms of ripple effects. For everything that happens in the airport area, what is their economic ripple in the community? What's the financial plan for an airport that could help it with revenue side so that the airport could be self-supporting or at least neutral? Where is the place of airports in Lebanon vis-a-vis other cities? Are we, benchmarking it properly? Are we doing what other cities would be doing? Where does it fit in the air industry? What's the logical part of it? How it has a pretty robust general aviation impact. What's the future of general aviation? General aviation, for those who don't know what that is these private aviation efforts, such as private jets, and they can be for all different kinds of reasons, both for passenger, for cargo. So you have that effect and where it is, and some cities have nothing but a general aviation airport. We have a commercial air capacity here with Cape Air. Where's Cape Air fit in our picture? I've flown my son in on Cape Air on Thanksgiving Day because he had his school, and the only way I could get him to have turkey with me is to fly him in on Cape Air. That created quite an access to fly around. You can fly almost anywhere in the world from the Lebanon airport. Is that something we could just simply do without? What's the financial obligations of a city toward an airport where there's a great deal of federal funding that has come into the airport over years of federal funding and paying for the airport? And you just walk away? No, you can't. What are the FAA requirements for the airport? What drives this? How can we have compatibility in the differing interests among differing people? And how can we be good neighbors with each other and live around an airport or be part of an airport community? Is there value in this? And I think we all have to have this conversation, and we're going to have it. It's probably going to last about 18 months. It's proposed in the capital improvement program to be about $400,000. As I conclude, I think you have to kind of look at ourselves a little bit. What's the infrastructure important to you? What's your home, your hearth? It's your means of transportation. It's the land upon which your home sits or where you reside. It's your neighborhood. It's all your surroundings. Now think more broadly in terms of the city. A city of destination. A place where people can search and find their destiny and come here. Is it a hospitable place if your bridges are falling down? If your streets are in ill repair? If you have a bunch of potholes everywhere? If you're facing situations where you made choices where might have been good back in the another century, but maybe in this century it's not so good. How much do you want to give up in terms of your transportation needs? And are people really going to go away from a vibrant economy? Are we going to continue to have a very strong influx of people coming into our city? You ask those questions to yourself, and then you ask about why we commit to have an infrastructure commitment in our city and extend our resources over multiple generations. And I guess the CIP program is providing some examples of what has been formulated through some of the good work of our city staff and the leadership of our policymakers at the city council level, and everybody in the community who's thought about this and have participated in it. I urge you to keep involved with your infrastructure in your community. It is really a critical leg in what will make Lebanon successful. And we need to have the highest quality of life we can in Lebanon, so our infrastructure demands this attention. So go to our website, check out the CIP plan. I thank you for your participation in looking at the budget process. And I hope at this point that you have a very wonderful Thanksgiving And I look forward to the holiday seasons as we continue to work on infrastructure, work on better tools in the city, and try to be better communicators, better neighbors, better civic-minded people that care about each other. Thank you. Let's pull together. Have a great day.